We hear a lot about phishing, about malware, about bots, very, very common on the client side. Network attacks, we see a lot of DDoS attacks, quite a bit of actually layer 4 based DDoS attacks, where you try to exhaust the CPU resources or the memory resources of the back-end server. Port scanning, also very popular. Session-based attacks. This is now really more dealing with SSL vulnerabilities, which we've seen quite a bit here lately, I have to say, more than I would think. And then we get into application attacks, which is really more on the AWAF side, right, where we look at vulnerability exploits, we look at logic abuse, and we can also look at DNS attacks also, as far as within application attacks. And so this is just the landscape of the different threats that can occur from client all the way to application, to the backend web application. So some of the common exploits that we're going to discuss here are broken authentication, parameter tampering, sensitive data exposure, forceful browsing. We're going to go through that one. Hid field manipulation, and some web apps are still vulnerable to this vulnerability, which we'll talk about here shortly. Redirects, scripting injection attacks, buffer overflow, clickjacking. So let's talk about a few of these here, and then we have labs where we can demonstrate some of these different vulnerabilities. So parameter tampering. This is where you would go in and you will modify the parameter value within a URL or within a web application request. Okay. Now, whenever you go in, of course, in this example, Nick is my parameter, and my value is going to be student 1. So that's okay, right? Nothing really malicious to this request. We're now just getting the information for student number 1. But what happens if you do Nick equals wildcard, right? In some web applications, a wildcard may be the allow all functionality, right? So if you do Nick equals wildcard, then on some web apps, it may display everyone's credentials, which is not a good thing. So a best practice, especially for developers, is to never have a wildcard as a parameter value, because that can be like, once again, a catch-all kind of functionality. So you never really want to do that. Okay. So this is just one aspect of parameter tampering. Well, let's say now you've already authenticated, right? And now you want to go in and modify the parameter value once you've authenticated. Okay. So in this example, we've logged into onlinebank.com, and my account ID is 6065. Right. What happens if I change that to 6066? Will I get redirected to another person's account? Hopefully not, right? But this is just yet another way how you can try to perform parameter tampering once you've authenticated. So data exposure. So this actually is done from user all the way to web application. Okay. Of course, we look at AWAF, advanced WAF, but there's also data exposure at the user side, right? Is SSL server verified? Or SSL certs valid? Are they coming from a trusted CA? They're not self-signed, right? Then you send a request into the cloud or the internet. Is that data encrypted? Right? Are we using strong crypto keys? Are we using triple dares? What are we using for our crypto keys, for our algorithms? Right? Then we go into the actual network itself, right? Is the network resources secure? Is the network secure itself, right? Is your network firewall doing what it's supposed to do? Are you blocking certain traffic based on your firewall rules, right? Is the sensitive data appearing in the application itself? Meaning, are your credit card numbers appearing in the application itself? Or are your pages being cached, right? You know how we have that remember me button whenever you log in? Is that really occurring, right? Are you doing autocomplete? Are your forms autocomplete? Which is also something that's really not a good security practice. Okay. Then we go down to the web application side, right? So now is your sensitive data being stored securely, right? Meaning, is your sensitive data not in clear text, right? You always want to make your sensitive data hidden at least by asterisks or some kind of mechanism where you're hiding the sensitive data, okay, in the logs and in the user interface. So sensitive data can be credit card numbers, can be passwords, can be health records. You always want to make sure that data is secure and also is not in clear text. So just some of the ways that you can expose your data from the user all the way to the web application. And we'll talk about, as far as advanced web, how can advanced web secure your data within itself or on the back end. So we'll discuss that quite a bit. We get into data guard. We'll also talk about other ways we can mask sensitive data within advanced web. Okay, forceful browsing. Forceful browsing is all about having access to sites you shouldn't have access to go. That's what forceful browsing is all about. So right now, 10.10.1.11, we've accessed the hacker site. We're all good. No worries here, right? We're all good. But you should not have access to the admin path and the admin credentials. Okay? So here now we're doing a forceful browse to admin.php, where now a user can now go in and modify the Hackett configuration, can modify some of the Hackett settings. So you definitely you always want to make sure that users have access to the correct paths that they have rights to. Okay? So we'll talk about how advanced WAF can also protect you from forceful browsing. We call that really more flows, how we can actually protect a flow. A flow is going from object to object. That's really what a flow is all about. And forceful browsing is a big piece of configuring flows. Okay, so here, another use case for forceful browsing, but now we've already authenticated, right, as a user role. What happens if I change that path to admin or manager? Will I get redirected? Hopefully not, right? But some applications will allow for that redirection to occur. Okay, hidden field manipulation. I don't know if you guys remember, maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe even 8-9 years ago, actually, one of the, I think $10 actually, that was actually hidden field manipulation occurring. I think it was United Airlines actually where that actually occurred. So this is kind of how this works. So let's say, for instance, I go in and I want to purchase a tuner for 1,000 USD. If you go to your HTML source within that web form, the web page, you will see that there are parameters, like a price parameter, and the value is 1,000 USD. So you can view that using inspector tools. You can just go to the view source. You can also view that via Fiddler. Right? So what this person did, what they decided to do was try to go in and modify the price value, have that value reflect on the server side, and then anyone else trying to access the same parameter will then have that value that was modified by the client. So here we see 1,000 USD. Let's say, for instance, I go in now and I use tools like Fiddler to go and change the price value to 1 USD. Okay? Now I can change, and now on the web application, you will see now the tuner costs 1 USD. Now, not many web applications really will allow you to do this now, but there are some homegrown applications that still support you changing fields, and that change will reflect on the backend server side, which will reflect on the web application. So very easy to do. Once again, some applications still support this change. But this is called hidden field manipulation, where you can change the values and have that value reflect on the web application. Also, if you look at this screen right here, the credit card number should also be masked. So not only are we doing if the data is exposed, we definitely want to always make sure that sensitive data is either masked or modified in some kind of fashion. Okay, redirects. Here is one, guys, where if you click on a link, you get redirected to a site where an attacker can then go in and take control of your session and or your computer. My wife does this all the time. You send an email to her. It says, oh, click on this link right here. And she does it. Next thing you know, you may start seeing these things pop up, right? And she's like, honey, what happened? So, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but that happened recently, so that's why I'm kind of saying that here. But anyway, so this is saying that now if I click on this link, and by the way, if the IRS sends you an email, you know it's definitely some kind of scam. The IRS will never send you an email, first off. And it says to claim tax refund. Yeah, right. That would never happen via email. At least not in the U.S. It's something a little bit totally different. But here, I'm going to click on this link where it says here. Click on the link. And now you may get redirected to an attacker site or an attacker portal. So now, once you've now accessed that attacker portal, or you send a redirect to the attacker portal, now the attacker now can have access to install malware, install any kind of malicious programs, or take control of that innocent user's computer. Okay. So once again, guys, be very careful whenever you click on links that you don't think is quite a safe link to click on. So Paul says IRS equals CRA. It would never happen. I like that. Okay. Okay, crossfire scripting attacks. This is one, guys, that we see done quite a bit in different fashions, right? But you can, with scripting attacks, you can deface sites, you can steal sessions, you can steal cookies, you can install malicious programs, all by doing scripting attacks. Okay. So here's one, guys, where someone's logged into wackopico.com. Right? And here, if you look at the comments field, I have a script tag and then my script command. You definitely have commands in here that can say, you know what, go in, access that database, retrieve information from that database, and store that data in my portal or in my log files or somewhere off. One thing with Advanced WAF is if Advanced WAF sees the script syntax in a request response, by default, Advanced WAF will trigger a violation and or block that request. So Advanced WAF will always trigger violations when it sees the script syntax in a request or in a response. But let's say, for instance, now this is my script and my script command. If I click submit, then I'm going to execute that script. And so this is kind of how that will look. So once again, not malicious per se, but you guys kind of get the picture here where I can definitely go in and make this definitely very much more in a malicious kind of fashion, compromised kind of fashion. Injection attacks. Also, another one is very, very common where we look for patterns. So a very common injection pattern is tick or 1 equals 1. Okay? If Advanced WAF sees that pattern or a tick as the first character in a request response, Advanced WAF will trigger a violation. Okay? Also, if Advanced WAF sees RM-RF, it will trigger a violation. So there's certain commands in syntax patterns that if Advanced WAF sees those patterns of syntax, it will then trigger a violation based on the attack signatures. So we're talking about attack signatures in much more detail tomorrow morning. So guys, here's one injection. This is just kind of showing you what I'm filtering on the last name Smith. Okay, so nothing malicious here. Everything's all good. But what happens if I put in my injection attack here? So just by putting in or true equals true or 1 equals 1, now if I execute that command, that filter, now the web application may send you back everyone's credentials that's stored on that web application. So once again, Advanced WAF will always trigger violations when it sees that string or a tick as the first character in a request or response. So guys, here is actually, credential stuffing, forgot. Credential stuffing. So here's yet another one where you use tools to go in and compromise a web application and then extract the username and password credentials and use those credentials to try to access a different web application. So this is kind of how it works. So an attacker goes in, compromises the web application, and then retrieves the stolen credentials. And that same attacker will then use those credentials to go in and then compromise a different web application by trying to log in, by trying to log into the web application by using one of these different user password combinations until one works. Now, I'm going to talk about this functionality on Advanced WAF I think this is the third discussion, where we have a dictionary built into Advanced WAF that has a list of stolen credentials. And if we see any of those credentials being used in a request, then Advanced WAF would trigger a violation. So we'll talk about how Advanced WAF mitigates this functionality on Thursday. We're getting the credential stuffing, mitigation, and detection. But very, very common, very, very common. eBay was prone to this. Yahoo was also prone to this credential stuffing vulnerability. Okay, and last but not least is an interesting use case. So this is one where so you guys know we have speed cameras, at least in the U.S. I don't know in Canada, Paul, if you guys have speed cameras also in Canada, where they detect the license. If you're speeding over certain speed limit, they will grant a license plate number and then send you a ticket based on the license plate number and your address, right? Your home address, the license number is tied to. What this driver decided to do was put an ejection attack on his front bumper. So what this attack says, go in, whenever the speed camera went in and executed the command on this bumper sticker, it says drop all the tables in the database. So now anyone who had tickets prior that was in a database, all of those records will be dropped by executing this one command on this front bumper sticker. So a pretty good use case. I'm not quite sure if this actually happened or not. I think it did, but it's a pretty good use case to kind of show you that actually attacks can actually do some good. It's not all harmful attacks. This one actually is for the good of mankind, or at least for the good of users who actually had speeding tickets prior. So pretty cool here. Okay. All right, gang. Any questions on different vulnerabilities? So we're going to talk about DOS. We're going to talk about web scraping, bot detection. So there's much more to come. Cross-site forgery. So we have much more to come. These are just some of the more common ones that we see out in the field, but many more we would discuss as far as Advanced WAF is concerned. Okay, so gang, if there are no questions, let's do this lab here. And that'll probably take us up to lunch also. Yeah, it probably will. Yeah. So this lab, guys, begins on page 416 through 419. Okay. Now, one thing to know, guys, on this lab, if you turn to page 418, step number 19. So page 418, step number 19. The path, you're going to open up a browser to docs.falterian.com/advancedwaf/v14.0. So change that .1 to .0. That's the correct path for the docs folder. So it'll be /advancedwaf/v14.0. From there, you will see the copy paste text file where you can do the testing for the credential stuffing attacks. Okay, so I think that would be it, guys. So let's do this lab, 416 to 418. Let's break for lunch after the lab. You guys, let's come back at 1 p.m. East Coast time. So another hour and 25 minutes from now, we will resume the session. Okay, so do a lab. Let's break for lunch, guys, and then we'll come back at 1 p.m. East Coast time.